Okay, so welcome back. Today we're going to continue speaking about relative clauses. My name is Ricardo Montoya. I hope that you know that by now. I am your teacher for the 5th and the 6th semester at the University of Guanajuato in the SEA. So, the thing is, as you remember on the last few videos, the last 3-4 videos, we have been speaking about something called relative clauses. We were speaking about them and we were explaining that the relative clause is a part of a complex sentence. So at the beginning, we were only speaking about simple sentences, but since 4 videos ago, we started talking also about complex or cleft sentences. A cleft sentence is a sentence that has more than one subject, okay, and more than one verb. Complex sentences, they have multiple subjects, multiple verbs, and because of that, they have multiple clauses. A clause is a group of words with subject and verb. If the group of words with subject and verb makes sense on its own, that is the main clause. Every cleft sentence has one main clause. If it doesn't make sense, if it needs the main clause, that is a relative clause. You can have as many relative clauses as you want. That's pretty much the thing that we were talking about. If you don't know what I'm speaking about, if you have any questions, any problems with that, please go back the last 3-4 videos, because that's what we have been speaking about. This is like the 4th video about relative clauses. Okay, so we have main clause and relative clause. What is the point of the relative clause? Why do we make cleft sentences? Why do we make complex sentences? Number one, because it will be very weird. It will be very repetitive to be talking everything like in simple sentences. I am this. My mom doesn't like that. I like ice cream. My dog doesn't like ice cream. I want this. I will go. I didn't do. It would be, I mean, you're never going to find a book that is written like that. Because, in the end, the way we speak, we are mixing our sentences, okay? Whenever you're trying to listen to a song or to music or to a movie, or you want to check out the dialogue between two characters into any scene that you want or anything like that, you're always going to find complex sentences. You're not going to find simple sentences that often. Complex sentences, as we were checking, they give you extra information about the action, okay? If you only say a simple sentence, you're only saying one thing. And if you have multiple clauses, you are explaining multiple things. So the person you're speaking to has fewer questions to ask. Now, another important thing is that we were checking that, there are many reasons to connect clauses. They give extra information, but how do you connect them? Well, one way that we were checking, one way that we have in which we can connect ideas is by using relative pronouns. A relative pronoun is pretty much when you have two sentences that are speaking about the same element, the same thing, that thing can work as your connector, okay? That thing can become the connector that is linking the two ideas. So for example, if you have two sentences about the same car, instead of saying, I like this car is blue, you can say, I like the car that is blue, or something like that. So you can use the car as a connector, for example, or a person, okay? If you make cleft sentences using relative pronouns, you need the relative pronouns who, whom, which, and that. Who is for people, but they have to be the subject of the relative clause. Whom is for people, but they have to be the object of the relative clause. They are not the subject. Which is for things, and it doesn't matter if this thing is the subject or the object of the relative clause. That's just not important when you are speaking with which. And that is perfect because it is universal. When you're using that, it can be for people, it can be for things, it can be for subjects, it can be for objects. Is not important. You can use it all the time. But also on the last video, we were checking that you don't want to use that all the time, because when you use that, you are making a defining relative clause. And a defining relative clause is a clause that is necessary. You are meaning in one way that this relative clause is super important because it changes the sense of the sentence. I mean, the main clause makes sense on its own because it is the main clause, but without defining relative clause, it might communicate something different. Okay. Instead of that, when you are using a non-defining relative clause, when you use who, whom, or which, you are declaring that what you are saying is pretty much a comment. So if it is taken away, nothing really happens. Okay, it continues to be the same thing pretty much, but it doesn't have any effect. Now, we were checking that. We spoke a lot about relative pronouns, about defining and non-defining relative clauses. All of that is in the last 3 videos. If you have any questions about that, please go back and check them. If you still have questions about that, please leave comments for me so I can work on specific examples that you may have, that you may be thinking about, and you may have doubts with. We can check them during the Zoom personal class, the face-to-face class. So we can check that those things. But for today, we're gonna change a little bit. We are going to assume. We're not going to continue speaking about relative pronouns because, again, we have been speaking about them for the last 3 videos. So right now, we're going to assume them, and we're going to use these other connectors. There are more connectors. We have 2 more videos about relative clauses, this and the next one. But we are going to be speaking about other connectors. We have the connectors while, when, where, because, and whose, okay? Or when, while, where, because, and whose. Now, these are not relative pronouns. Remember that when you have a relative pronoun, well, it is not important if it's relative or not. When you have a pronoun, what is the meaning of a pronoun? Pronouns, they replace nouns. So when you are using that, you are replacing the cat in the last example that we were checking. Or when you are using whom, you are replacing Paul in the other example that we were checking, or whatever. But these are not pronouns. This is not important now. When, while, where, because, and whose, they do not replace any person. In that way, they are not important. It says, let's just read the little definition that we have in the box. Let me just erase all of this. Okay, it says, other than the relative pronouns who, whom, which, and that, there are other ways to connect clauses. This is a different way to connect clauses, to make left sentences, such as the ones above. Such as is, for example, the ones above. The ones above, when, while, where, because, and whose. They connect clauses that don't have any particular thing in common, like relative pronouns. Remember, relative pronouns are connecting clauses. They are connecting 2 sentences that have one thing in common. In this case, they don't really have one thing in common, but they have a time in common, a place in common. They have something else in common, but not necessarily one element. There is not a noun that you are using as a connector. For example, let's just I'm going to erase a part of this so that we have some space to check everything. Okay, so let's use. Okay, let's speak about when and while first. When and while. Okay. When and while. When do we use this? It says when and while. You can connect ideas based on the time. If you base yourself on the time at which both of them happen. So you have 2 ideas that happen at the same time, okay? When you use when, it means that it means in that moment. And when you use while, it means during the duration of said event. So they are similar, they are speaking about time, but they are a little different. How does this work? Okay, so let me show you. We have 2 sentences. I like that moment is one sentence. Yes? In that moment, they kissed. Okay? Maybe we are speaking about a movie or something. Yeah? Maybe we are speaking about a movie. And in that case, well, we have always subject, because they are affirmative statements, they start with the subject, and this is the subject. Sorry, it is a little bit outside. Subject and subject, yeah? We have an auxiliary. The auxiliary will be the auxiliary did. In this case, we don't really use it because this is simple past. In the past, the auxiliary is did, but we don't use it in affirmative statements. In this case, it is also the simple past, so the auxiliary is did, and we don't really use it because this is an affirmative statement. We don't have an auxiliary because of that. So we have a verb. The verb is the verb to like and the verb to kiss. Okay? Now, in this case, we have the verb liked in the past. Why? Because we don't have the auxiliary. We have the verb kissed. Why? Because we don't have the auxiliary. If we had the auxiliary, we wouldn't have to change the verb. Because we don't have the auxiliary, we'd have to change the verb. And then we have a complement. In this case, well, this is the complement. The complement is in that moment. I had to change this. The complement is in that moment. In this case, the complement, well, this complement could be at the end also. They kissed in that moment. So normally this will be at the end. I place them together because, as you remember, they have to be together to be able to combine them. Okay? I like the moment they kissed in that moment. So we are speaking about I liked something and they kissed. They kissed, and that's it. These two sentences, they don't have an element in common. This is I, this is they. This is like, this is kissed. They don't have a thing in common. I mean, there is not a person in common. There is not a noun in common. There is not a thing that I can change, that I can use as a connector. The only connector that I can use is the complement. Maybe the only thing that these two things have in common is that they happen at the same time. I'm speaking about a movie. So I like the moment in the movie. In that moment, they kissed. Yes? I like that moment in the movie. They kissed in that moment. So the only thing that they have in common is that they happened at the same time. So my only connection is that both these things, they happened at the same time. ¿Ok? Otra vez. Aquí yo tengo dos oraciones. Una oración dice, me gustó ese momento. La otra oración dice, ellos se besaron en ese momento. Esto que está en morado, aquí en la segunda cláusula, en realidad debería estar al final porque es el complemento. ¿Por qué lo puse al principio? Porque acuérdense que cuando usamos un conector, este conector tiene que estar junto a la cosa a la que le está haciendo referencia. En ese sentido, bueno, ya aquí la oración debería haber sido they kissed in that moment, y yo lo que hice fue pasar ese in that moment para acá. Estas dos oraciones no tienen un elemento en común como las oraciones anteriores. ¿Se acuerdan las oraciones sobre el gato que se escapó, sobre Paul que trabajaba con Ana, sobre el carro que ganó la carrera, sobre la casa que compró quién sabe quién? Bueno, teníamos dos casas, una casa en cada oración. Teníamos dos Anas o dos Pauls, o teníamos dos autos, y entonces borrábamos uno y lo cambiábamos por un pronombre personal. En este caso, no va a ser tan parecido porque en realidad no hay una cosa que esté en común, ¿sí? En realidad no hay una... Lo único que tienen en común estas dos oraciones es que sucedieron al mismo tiempo. A mí me gustó ese momento, ellos se besaron en ese momento. Eso es lo que tienen en común. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que hago? It is very simple. The only thing that you have to do is you erase one of this in that moment. Yeah? I like the moment, and then you need a connector. And this connector is going to be the connector when or while. In this case, we can use when. I like the moment when they kissed. So I have only one sentence. I like the moment when they kissed. I have a subject and a verb. I have a subject and a verb. I have two subjects. I have two verbs. I have only one sentence. This is a cleft sentence. And I use the connector when. When is also a question word. You can use it for question word. You're asking for the moment, but also can be used as a connector. When you're using it, what you're saying is that this action, the action in the main clause happened at the same time as the action in the second clause. I liked it, or I liked when they kissed. Both moments are at the same time. The thing that I like and the moment they kissed are the same moment. Yes? The part that I like about the movie and the moment they kissed is the same part, is the same moment. Yeah? So I use the connector when. When, it means, again, cuando. ¿Sí? Me gustó la parte cuando ellos se besaron. Me gustó la parte cuando, o no sé, recuerdo el momento cuando te conocí. I remember the moment when I met you. Okay? Again, we can do a different example right here. We have two sentences. Maybe I didn't go to school. Period. This is a sentence. Another sentence. You had a presentation. Period. Okay? So I have, again, subject, auxiliary, verb, and complement. Subject, the auxiliary is did. I am not using it because this is affirmative, this is negative. The auxiliary is taking the negative. I have a verb and I have a complement. These two sentences, they don't have anything in common. Estas oraciones no tienen ninguna palabra en común. I, aquí no está I. Go, aquí no está go. La escuela, aquí tampoco está. O sea, no hay una parte que yo pueda decir, esta está repetida, esta la voy a usar de conector. Estas dos oraciones son dos oraciones simples que no tienen nada que ver entre sí. La única manera de que yo las pueda conectar es que diga, bueno, lo que tienen en común es que pasaron al mismo tiempo. En realidad, yo lo que quise decir es, I didn't go to school that day. Yo no fui a la escuela ese día. You had a presentation that day. A lo mejor la única cosa que los conecta es que ambas cosas pasaron al mismo tiempo. Yo no fui a la escuela el día que tú presentaste o que tú hiciste una presentación. Entonces, en lugar de decir, a lo mejor estas las puedo unir, pero las voy a unir no reemplazando a ninguno de los elementos, ¿sí? No puedo reemplazar a ninguno de los elementos porque ninguno de ellos está repetido. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que voy a hacer? Bueno, perdón. Ok, es que aquí había puesto todo esto en blanco. Entonces, bueno, olvidemos esta parte. Bueno, ya sé cómo borrarla, perdón. Ok, let's get rid of this. Okay, so we have two sentences, and the only way that we can connect them is that we say that they happen at the same time. If we want to connect them saying that they happen at the same time, we get rid of the period, yes, and we use a connector. The connector for time is the connector when. When you are using this connector, this is the demarcation where you know that this is one clause and this is the beginning of a different clause. What is the main clause? The one that doesn't start with the marker. This starts with a marker, so this is the relative clause. Yes, this doesn't start with any marker. This is a normal sentence. This will be the main clause. If I only say I didn't go to school, it makes sense. Si yo solo digo no fui a la escuela, ok, está perfectamente bien, no fui a la escuela, no hay ningún problema. Pero si yo digo no fui a la escuela cuando tú hiciste tu presentación, entonces es otra oración. La oración es una oración completa con dos sujetos, con dos verbos y con un conector que se llama when. ¿Sí? Este me sirve para hablar de cosas que pasaron al mismo tiempo. ¿Más o menos? Ok. ¿Cuándo se usa while? Sorry, I need white. Yeah, that's it. When do you use while? For example, we have this example. Let's just write it down. It says, I was watching TV. I was watching TV. This is a sentence. In the other one, it says, you were dancing. You were dancing. So in reality, we have two sentences. We have subject, auxiliary. This is the verb to be in the past. This is the past continuous. The verb has to be in the ing, and this is a complement. And we have subject. The auxiliary is the verb to be. It's conjugated to the person. This is also the past participle. The verb is in ing. And in this case, we don't really have a complement. The complement is always optional. Okay? So they don't have anything in common. I was watching TV. That's perfect. You were dancing. That's perfect. They don't really have anything in common. Maybe the only thing that they have in common is something that I don't know, is that they happened in the same moment. In the same, let's say, for example, I was watching TV at 5 p.m. You were dancing at 5 p.m. So the only connection between these two sentences is that they happened at exactly the same time. If I want to connect them, saying that they happened at the same time, again, the only thing that I need to do is to erase this. Let me just make a little bit more space. I think I wrote very large letters, so I need a black one. You, and that is the subject. So I need a connector, and my connector can be when, or it can be while. What is the meaning of when? Yo estaba bailando cuando tú veías la tele, o sea, a esa hora. Yo estaba bailando mientras tú veías la televisión. Este hace más énfasis en que los dos estaban ocurriendo simultáneamente. Al mismo tiempo que tú estabas moviéndote, que estabas bailando, yo estaba viendo la televisión. Los dos son con tiempo, pero este hace más énfasis en que son simultáneos. Este nada más hace énfasis en que, bueno, no hace realmente énfasis, solo está hablando de que, pues fue al mismo tiempo. Pueden usar cualquiera de los dos. Hay veces que tiene más sentido hacer énfasis en la simultaneidad. Hay veces que tiene más sentido hacer énfasis nada más en que sucedieron al mismo tiempo. Entonces ya sabemos cómo se usa when y cómo se usa while. ¿Ok? Los usamos cuando tenemos dos oraciones que no tienen nada en común, pero para que tengan algo en común, lo que nosotros hacemos es ponerles un tiempo. En realidad, a lo mejor aquí decía I was watching TV, a lo mejor la oración completa podría ser I was watching TV at 5 p.m. Esa es mi oración completa. Y a lo mejor la otra es you were dancing at 5 p.m. Aquí, bueno, es muy sencillo saber que pasaron al mismo tiempo, pero este complemento siempre es opcional, entonces a lo mejor no lo dije. Entonces, pero si yo sé que estas dos cosas pasaron al mismo tiempo, puedo conectarlas usando while. Y ahora yo tengo otra vez sujeto y verbo, Tengo dos sujetos, dos verbos, ya no necesito esto, porque este while ya está expresando que pasaron al mismo tiempo. Yo estaba viendo televisión mientras tú bailabas. Ya no necesito decir la hora, porque pues ya con mi conector, bueno, si quiero decirlo al final, while you were watching at 5 p.m. Ok, mientras tú bailabas a las 5 de la tarde. Pero ya no necesito decirlo dos veces para que se sepa que las dos pasaron al mismo tiempo. ¿Sí? Así es como se usa este tipo de conector. Déjenme borrar todo esto. Y vamos a hacer espacio para poder explicar where. Ok, vamos a usar este espacio. To speak about where. You can connect ideas based on the place where they happened. This, when and while, they are about the time, okay? You use them to connect ideas that happened at the same time or simultaneously. You use where when you're not speaking about time, but you're speaking about places, yeah? For example, I have two sentences here. Let's write them down. One says, right here, it says, I love the park. I need to change this to black. I love the park. This is one sentence. The other one is I met you. Yes? So I have, again, subject. The auxiliary is do. We don't use it because this is simple present. The verb is love. And this is the complement, the park. Subject, the auxiliary is did. We don't use it because this is the simple past in the affirmative statement. This is the verb in the past, is not meet with double E. This is meet in the present, this is met in the past, okay? So it is in the past, and this is the complement. This is an object pronoun. They don't have anything in common. I love the park, I met you. Maybe the only thing that they have in common is that I love the park and I met you at that park. Maybe this is the only thing that they have in common. The only thing that they have in common is that I love this specific park and I met you at this specific park. Both these actions, they happened in the same place. Maybe this is the only thing that we have in common. So what do? If we want to connect them, instead of having two different sentences, I get rid of the period, and then I need to use this, I need to use this marker, this at the park marker, and I need to change it and use it as a connector at the beginning of the second clause, the relative clause, yes? And when I do that, I need to use the form where. Where is a question word, but it can also be used as a connector. It's connecting this clause with this clause. This action happened in the same place as this action, and you don't really need to do this anymore. I love the park where I met you. Okay, I love the park, and that park is the place where I met you. So we can use where as a connector. Okay, that's pretty much it. That's very, very, very simple. You have two sentences that have nothing in common. They don't really have anything in common, but the only thing they have in common is that they happened in the same place. So you are using that place to connect the two ideas. Now you have two subjects and two verbs, but you only have one sentence. You don't really need this anymore because this is implied here. Where means at that park. So you don't really need that. You don't need this anymore. I love the park where I met you. Perfect. So you have again two clauses. The main clause is this. I love the park. This is the main clause, and the relative clause is the one that starts with the connector. You have this connector where at the beginning, and this is the indication that we have a second clause. Okay, that's pretty much the way it works. Yeah, you can use. It says where you can connect ideas based on the place where they happened. When you connect ideas with where, it means that the two clauses share a common place or a place in common. I love the park, I met you in the park. I love the park where I met you. Both clauses are speaking about the same place. So that's also, I hope, very simple. Let's erase all of this for a moment. I need a space. Okay, and let's speak about because. When do we use because? It says because. When you use because to connect clauses, you are saying that the relative clause is the reason for the main clause. So you have two clauses, and one of them is the reason for the other one. So for example, I have here, this is like a longer sentence. It says, I love the park. This is the same sentence as before. I love the park, period. This is one simple sentence. Then we have, I met you. At the park. Well, not at the park, at that park. the same park. And then I have another sentence that says, they sell very good food in that park. Okay? So I have three different sentences. I have three different simple sentences. This has a subject and a verb. This has a subject and a verb. This has a subject and a verb. You have three different sentences. If you want to connect them, you need a reason. You cannot use relative pronouns because you don't have like anything in common. So you can erase the periods and okay, I love the park and the only thing in common, I love the park, I met you at that park. So this place is the only thing they have in common. So I get rid of that park and I use the connector where. I love the park where I met you. Okay, this is perfect. I love the park where I met you. This is like a sentence. This is like a longer sentence. This is a cleft sentence with two subjects and two verbs. But what happens if I want to say more? I want to say the reason I love that park where I met you. I love the park where I met you, but it's not because I met you there. The reason that I love the park where I met you is that they sell very good food in that park. In this same park, they sell very good food. So this is the reason I love the park. I'm sorry, I don't love the park because I met you there. I love the park because of the food they sell. So what do? I use another connector, the connector because. When you are using the connector because, sorry, you are saying that this clause, yeah, is the reason for this clause. So you don't really need in that park anymore because that will be redundant. We have the park right here. So it says, I love the park where I met you because they sell very good food. So I have three subjects and I have three verbs. I have subject, verb, subject, verb, subject, verb. Here is my second clause. This is the first clause. This is the second clause. And this is the third clause. This is a connector and this is a connector. They are the indication of the next clause. This is the main clause because it doesn't have a connector. The main clause is I love the park. I am telling you this relative clause. This relative clause speaks about the place, explains which park, explains which park. Not any park, the park where I met you. And this other relative clause explains the reason. This is the reason why I love the park. I love the park because they sell very good food. I love the park where I met you because they sell very good food there. Okay, so we have only one sentence and we have three subjects, three verbs. Yeah, we have subject, the auxiliary is do. We don't use it because this is simple present, the verb, and the complement is the park. Subject, the auxiliary, this is did, this is in the past. The verb is in the past. And we have a complement. This is subject, the auxiliary again is do. In the present, we don't use it, the verb is here, and this is the complement. Subject, auxiliary, verb, and complement, subject, auxiliary, verb, and complement, subject, auxiliary, verb, and complement. We have the same structure repeated 3 times. When you are using the connector where, you're speaking about the same place. When you are using the connector because, you are telling the reason. So people, if you say, I love the park, that's okay. But people can ask you, why do you love the park? If I say, I love the park because they sell very good food, you don't have to ask why. You already know why the person loves the park. If somebody says, I love the park because they sell very good food, you can say, which park? The park where I met you. Ah, okay, I know which park and I know why you like it. So I have more and more and more information. Okay, so this is the use of these relative clauses. Okay, ¿cómo usamos el because? Because también puede funcionar aquí. Lo ponemos al principio de una cláusula y aquí demarca que aquí empieza una cláusula relativa. ¿Sí? Está empezando con because y está diciéndonos que esta cláusula que está subrayada está explicándonos la razón de la cláusula principal. ¿Sí? ¿Por qué me gusta ese parque? Si yo nada más te digo, me encanta ese parque, me puedes preguntar, ¿cuál parque? Ah, en el que te conocí. Me encanta el parque en el que te conocí. Entonces tú ya sabes cuál. Ya no tienes que preguntarme cuál parque. Ya sabes a cuál me refiero. Pero de todas maneras me puedes decir, oye, ¿y por qué te encanta ese parque donde nos conocimos? Ah, y yo te puedo decir, me encanta el parque donde te conocí porque, o debido a que, venden muy buena comida ahí. No porque te conocí ahí, lo siento mucho. Me gusta ese parque donde yo te conocí porque, o debido a, que ellos venden muy buena comida. Entonces, ya puedes hacer menos preguntas. Ya te expliqué cuál parque, por qué ese parque. Y ahora me puedes preguntar otras cosas. ¿Cuándo? No sé, o sea, ya no me puedes ni preguntar ni dónde ni por qué, porque ya te lo expliqué en esta oración compuesta, que es una oración que tiene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 palabras, pero tiene solamente 3 cláusulas. Y cada una de las cláusulas está siguiendo la estructura que nosotros siempre hemos usado desde la primera clase, desde el primer video. Así se usa el conector because. No se preocupen, del because vamos a hablar un poquito más adelante en el siguiente video porque hay un par de cosas que quiero señalar al respecto, pero mientras vamos a pasar a whose. ¿Cuándo usamos whose? Ok, otra vez necesito un poco de espacio, aquí quedó todo demasiado pegado, entonces voy a borrar un poco, bueno, voy a borrar todo esto, bueno, lo voy a pintar de blanco para que no se vea, y ahora sí puedo hablar. It says whose. When do you use whose? Whose. This connector establishes that one thing on the relative clause belongs to or is the possession of someone or something in the main clause. So this has to do with possession. Yeah, we are dealing with possession, with possessive things. Yeah. So one thing in the first clause belongs or is the possession of one thing in the second clause. In this case, we have this sentence. It says, I want a dog. I want a dog. This is my first sentence. My second sentence is the hair, the hair of the dog, sorry. Puedo decir the hair of the dog, aunque eso suena como en español, el pelo del perro. Más bien podríamos decir the dog's hair. Es más o menos lo mismo, pero está como en inglés. Estoy usando esto como un adjetivo. El pelo del perro. Acuérdense que los adjetivos van antes de los sustantivos. El pelo del perro is black. Es negro. O sea, negro. Entonces aquí yo tengo 2 oraciones. Cada una con su sujeto y su verbo. Tenemos sujeto y verbo. I want a dog. Tenemos sujeto. El sujeto puede ser del pelo del perro o el pelo del perro. Estas dos significan lo mismo. Y tenemos el verbo. El verbo es. El pelo del perro es negro, el pelo del perro sea negro. Yo quiero un perro y el pelo del perro es negro. Aquí yo no estoy hablando de un perro, o sea, no puedo reemplazarlo con un pronombre relativo, no puedo reemplazarlo con which o con who o con whom o con that. ¿Por qué? Porque no es la misma cosa. Aquí yo estoy hablando, permítame un segundito, aquí yo estoy hablando de un perro. Aquí yo estoy hablando del pelo de un perro, no del perro. Yo quiero un perro, el pelo del perro sea negro. Entonces, aquí lo que hay es lo que podríamos decir una posesión. Estamos diciendo que yo quiero un perro y quiero, perdón, ese está muy grueso. Y yo quiero que ese perro sea dueño, possession, sea dueño de un pelo negro. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que hago? Aquí lo que voy a quitar es este marcador que tengo de posesión. The hair of the dog es el pelo. Bueno, el pelo está bien, pero le puedo quitar el de dog, porque of the dog es como el marcador de posesión. Aquí puedo quitarle the dogs y nada más dejar hair. Aquí lo que me importa es el pelo, ¿sí? Pero, ¿de quién es ese pelo? De este perro. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que hago? Para establecer una relación, voy a usar el pronombre. Permítame un segundo. Voy a usar, perdón, no es el pronombre, es el conector because. Estos conectores se llaman en realidad conjunciones. Es la conjunción whose. Cuando puse el whose, ya le quité la parte the dog's hair. Esto de aquí servía para hablar de posesión, pues lo quito porque esto de aquí sirve para hablar de posesión. O yo ya he puesto el pelo of the dog. Esto sirve para hablar de posesión, pues lo quito porque esto sirve para hablar de posesión. Solo necesito que el whose ya habla de posesión, entonces ya no necesito establecer la posesión de ninguna otra manera. Tengo que quitar cualquier marcador de posesión. Ya no necesito esto y tampoco ya no necesito esto. ¿Sí? Entonces, ¿qué es lo que estoy diciendo aquí? Lo que estoy diciendo es I want a dog whose hair is black. Yo quiero, aquí esta es una división, este es mi primer sujeto y verbo, y aquí yo tengo sujeto y verbo, ¿sí? Yo quiero un perro cuyo pelo sea negro. Este es como un cuyo, que significa que yo quiero un perro que sea el dueño, que sea el poseedor de un pelo negro, ¿sí? Este solo se utiliza cuando estamos hablando de posesión. Si estamos hablando de posesión, aquí yo tengo una oración. Yo quiero un perro cuyo pelo sea negro. Sujeto y verbo, sujeto y verbo. El sujeto es whose hair. El pelo es el que es negro, ¿no? Entonces, esa sería otra manera de conectar cláusulas. Entonces, bueno, si se pueden dar cuenta, podemos dejarlo aquí. Podemos usar when o while para conectar oraciones que no tienen nada en común más que sucedieron al mismo tiempo. Incluso si no habíamos dicho que sucedieron al mismo tiempo, cuando usamos el conector when o while, se deja ver que sucedieron al mismo tiempo. Para eso sirve. Por eso ya no necesitamos poner el tiempo. Cuando decimos I like the part when they kiss, I like when they kiss, ya no necesitas decir the moment, ni in that moment, ni nada así, porque ese when ya implica el momento, ¿sí? Las dos oraciones están conectadas únicamente porque ocurrieron al mismo momento, ¿sí? Lo mismo con while, solo que while es un poquito más, hace más énfasis en durante, o sea, al mismo tiempo. Digamos que sí están ahí como encimados los tiempos, durante, ¿sí? Usamos where cuando estamos hablando de cosas que pasaron en el mismo lugar. I love the park, I met you in the park, I love the park where I met you. ¿Sí? Cuando yo digo where, ya estoy diciendo que mi cláusula relativa se trata del lugar en el que pasa la cláusula principal. Y cuando uso because, estoy diciendo que la cláusula relativa que empieza con because es el motivo de la cláusula principal. ¿Sí? También el último, para terminar, es whose. Estoy diciendo que la cláusula relativa, la cosa que está en la cláusula relativa, en este caso el pelo, le pertenece a alguien de la cláusula principal. Entonces, tenemos estos dos para tiempo, ¿sí? Este para lugar, este para motivo y este para posesión. Si tienen alguna duda, si tienen alguna oración específica que estén pensando, que no sepan cómo hacer, por favor apúntenla, mándenmela, si no lo podemos ver durante las sesiones. No se preocupen, ya estamos en algo bastante más complicado. Esto va a venir tal vez no va a venir en un examen realmente como en gramática, pero necesito que sepan cómo funciona, porque a lo mejor en los escritos de los exámenes parcial o final, pues ya pues empiezan a utilizar, en los textos ya empiezan a venir cláusulas, entonces tenemos que ser capaces de entenderlas, ¿ok? Esto sería todo por hoy. Bueno, por este video fue ya un poco largo. Nos falta nada más un video más para terminar con las cláusulas. Nos faltan unos cuantos conectores y conjunciones que tenemos que checar. Por eso, because vamos a ampliar un poquito más en because en el próximo video. Y ya con eso terminamos este tema. Después de eso nos queda reported speech y conditional sentences. Y ya estuvo. Sí. Van a ser... Ahorita vamos por el video 40 y tantos, casi 50. Entonces van a ser cerca de 60 videos, casi es uno por día de clase. Pero bueno, pues esas son las clases. Okay. So thank you very much, and I will see you in the next time. Yeah. Take care.